In this video, I'll show you how to make this pappardelle pasta with mushrooms and prosciutto. Let's rock it out. I'm going to start this recipe off with a half of an ounce of dried porcini mushrooms, and you can use any kind of dried mushrooms that you can find. You can also use fresh porcinis if you can happen to find them in your store. They're kind of hard to come across. Like, I would have to go to a specialty market, which I didn't have time to do today. So I just went ahead and got some of the dried ones while I was at Sprouts. These are right out of the bulk spice section in Sprouts. And I just want to chop them up a little bit to get them smaller. Keep in mind they're going to get bigger when they get their liquid added to them. So that's pretty good. I don't want to like chop them too much, but what I'm doing with these is putting them into this pan here. Into the pan they go, and I'm going to get all that dust in there in just a second, but for now I'm also going to add in 2 cups of beef stock. You can use beef broth. If you don't have this in the house, you can use chicken stock. The beef is going to give it, you know, quite a bit of flavor. Chicken stock works really well too. I'm going to put these on the stove on low heat just to rehydrate them. Also guys, if you're using a low sodium stock, put just a pinch of salt in here too. So while that is reducing, I'm going to go ahead and cut these mushrooms. I'm just going to trim the stem end to get the little dried bit off of there. And I'm going to quarter these. You can slice them if you want to, but I kind of want to have that, you know, look where it looks like this big old chunk of mushroom, because the mushrooms are kind of the star of this dish. Obviously the prosciutto is adding a lot of flavor in there too, but I want the mushrooms to really stand out. So, you know what, this guy's kind of big, so I might do that with him. Got the idea? Perfect. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and chop. I have 1 pound. These are the Baby Bellas, Creminis. Whatever you want to use is fine though. You could use oyster mushrooms. Anything that you like is fine for this. Mushrooms that you love. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and finish these up. So here I have 3 ounces of prosciutto, and I'm just going to kind of fold it around and cut it this way. Kind of easier to cut when it's folded over like this than it would be if you try to cut it in strips. It kind of moves around. Alright, I'm going to turn it this way and just go through it like so. Alright, and I think I'm pretty good with this. You can cut it a little bit smaller if you want. It is going to shrink up a little bit when we cook it in a second though, so keep that in mind. I'm going to put this to the side for just a second. Next, I'm going to chop up my sage, and these are my pretty little sage leaves. I have 10 of them all together. I have 2 separate stacks, and actually I might just kind of separate those a little bit because it's easier. You do the same thing as you just did with the prosciutto. Just kind of roll them over, and I want these to be kind of thin, so I'm just going to go over them like so. Get the rest of these chopped up and put them to the side. By the way, if you happen not to have fresh sage, you can use dried sage. You need to use 1/3 of what you use fresh. So I'm going to say that I have about 3 tablespoons, maybe 2.5 tablespoons of sage here. Let's see, what would you call that? 3 tablespoons? Okay, 3 tablespoons. So let's say 2 teaspoons to 1 tablespoon of dried sage if that's what you're using. Next, I'm going to mince up 2 cloves of garlic, and I've showed you guys this trick before, but I use the back of my knife to start, and then I flip it and go over with the sharp side. So it's easier to do this on the very edge of your cutting board, but see, I disappear, so hang on, let me move. Let's see what we can do here. There we go, can you see? Alright, so if you do it on the edge, you just kind of mash the back side of your knife first. And you can look at this. I just went over it once with the back side of my knife. You see how it's pretty much minced already. Awesome trick if you have a ton to chop. I'm going to do that to my other little clove also, and then you just run your knife back over it like that. Bam, garlic is chopped. And what I have here is 2 very big shallots, and I went ahead and weighed them just so you would know what I have here, and it is 4 ounces of shallots altogether. I'm just going to cut these this way. I'm not going to dice them, so of course, you know, you can always do these however you want, but I'm just doing these pretty little slices. I want it to kind of look rustic when we're finished, so this is the thickness. Good to go? Alright, do your other shallots and put them to the side. So here I have my 8-quart stock pot and I'm adding some iodized salt into it, probably around 1/4 cup. Over here I have those mushrooms. They have the stock. They're simmering right now. They're reducing just a little bit. I'm actually going to turn this up a little bit because I want them to reduce a little bit faster. I want to end up with about 1.5 cups of that stock. So here in this front pot I have 1/4 cup of olive oil and it is nice and hot right now. I'm going to go ahead and add that prosciutto that we chopped up earlier in here, and I just want to crisp this prosciutto up and then I'm going to remove it from the pan. This is looking really gorgeous, so I'm going to go ahead and start taking it out of the pan. You can see it is nice and crispy. It is on the verge of getting a little bit too done, so I'm definitely ready to take it out. This is just going here onto a little plate over to the side and kind of spread out so it doesn't like start steaming itself and softening up. I want to keep that crispy. I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons of butter love into my pan and get that moving around. And I'm going to turn my heat up to medium-high and add in half of my mushrooms. Only half at a time because I want to get a little bit of browning on these mushrooms. If you're having an issue getting your mushrooms brown, it's probably because you're putting too many in the pan at a time. If you crowd your mushrooms, they steam each other and they don't get that nice brown color. So give them plenty of room to do their frying here and don't steam them. Do 2 batches. It's okay. It just takes a minute. Alright, so these mushrooms, I'm just going to kind of gather them over here to one side. Look how pretty they are. Oh, Alicia, your mushrooms are so brown and pretty. Thank you. That's so nice of you to say. How sweet. Okay, these are over here. These guys are going in. In you go. And these guys are coming out. Oh, look at that. Do you see the color difference on them? Look at those guys and these guys. They're gorgeous, right? Okay, get those out. Get your second batch done. By the way, I did wash my mushrooms. I don't know who started that nasty rumor that if you wash your mushrooms, they won't brown was, but let me tell you what, in the county that I live in, we call that a health violation because you should wash your mushrooms. You can do what you want. I'm sure I'm going to get comments about how their mushrooms won't brown, but you know what? My mushrooms seem to be browning. I'm done with this subject. I am like getting frustrated by people not washing mushrooms, but y'all do what you want. There are my beautifully browned washed mushrooms, and I am ready to add in my next thing. So here are those shallots, garlic, and sage that we chopped up earlier. Going to put those back into my pot. Hit it with a little bit of kosher salt and a little bit of pepper. And this is probably all the salt and pepper I'm going to add into this since we have the prosciutto in there. And I'm also going to be adding a little bit of my pasta water, which also has salt. I'm going to add my other mushrooms back in there as well. And just cook this around until my shallots become translucent. That is called sweating your shallots. So everything is looking gorgeous in here, and I just kind of made an executive decision to go ahead and deglaze my pan here because you can see all these delicious brown bits, and obviously I don't want them to burn, and they wouldn't anyway because I'm going to be adding stock in just a minute, the stock that we have with the mushrooms. But hey, a little white wine never hurt anyone, you know? A little white wine never hurt anyone. That's nice. See all that stuff come right off? Alright, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. And here I have the stock that was back there reducing. I'm probably down to, I don't know, a cup. Let's call it a cup. Going to add that in there. So pretty. I'm going to let it reduce down just a little bit more, maybe about by half. It's going to thicken up a little too. My water over here is boiling, so I'm going to go ahead and add my pappardelle right on in there. This is going to cook for 8 minutes. I want it to come out a little bit harder than al dente because it's going to cook a little bit more when we add it back into this other pot. Okay, so at this point you can see that the liquid is pretty much all gone out of there. Also, my noodles are ready to go in here. Again, I did not cook the noodles all the way down, and this is why. what we're going to do is add some of that pasta water in here. So I have almost a cup. It doesn't have to be perfect, but that's going to go in. And then I'm going to use my tongs. Come over here. Come be friends. Okay, then I'm just going to start grabbing my noodles out of my pot, which I have right next door here, and putting them right into the pot. But I'm going to attempt to do it a little bit neater than what I'm doing here. Woohoo! Good thing I cleaned my stove before I started. Once you have all of your noodles in there, we're going to add half the prosciutto back in. Save the rest for garnish. That was more than half, but that's okay. The rest is for garnish. And then we're just going to toss this. Toss, toss, toss. And your noodles are going to finish cooking in your sauce. It's going to be lovely. This is going to thicken up. Don't worry. The starch from the noodles and that water that we put in there is going to thicken it up for you. Just keep tossing. You can see it's starting to thicken up and get all goodness. These noodles are definitely softening up too. This takes like maybe 3 minutes on medium heat. Okay, can you see that the liquid is pretty much gone out of there? That is because the noodles have sucked it up. So now it is time to add in the cream. Oh yes, half of a cup of cream going in, heavy cream. I will definitely be getting the rest of that out of my cup. Get that stirred in. One more thing and we're done. And last but never least, I have 2 tablespoons of butter, which is soft and cut into pieces. And I'm just going to toss that around. Wish you guys could smell this. It's pretty amazing. I am not gonna lie, it smells terrific. So that's it. Finish tossing it around and plate it up. It's ready to serve and enjoy.